The girl slowly bent down and carefully listened to the sound of her younger brother's heartbeat beneath her. It felt strange, after all. Just yesterday, they were still real siblings, but everything changed in an instant, all because of a single sentence from their adoptive father. Suddenly, the protagonist and the 5 beautiful sisters were no longer blood-related. From that moment on, they went from inseparable siblings to boys and girls who were legally allowed to marry each other. Originally, the protagonist was the only boy among the prestigious Siyun family's 4 daughters. The eldest sister, Bonri, was different from the rest. She was a top student at a famous university. On the surface, she seemed gentle like an angel, but behind the scenes, she loved teasing her younger siblings, especially her brother. The protagonist knew this all too well. The second sister, Oba, was a cold and logical high schooler, an undisputed academic genius. The third sister, Wuka, was cheerful, athletic, and the ace of both the swim team and the track team. The fourth sister, Nan, was a tennis prodigy who had already won 3 championships and was even being considered for the Olympics. The fifth and youngest, Kinai, was like an idol among the sisters. With her natural cuteness and healing presence, she was adored by all, especially the younger brother, who was as handsome as a celebrity and especially popular with rich ladies. This star-studded family was thrown into chaos during Chinai's birthday party when their father revealed a shocking truth. All of them, except for Nan and the younger brother who were twins, were adopted and had no blood ties whatsoever. It was like a nuclear bomb dropping on the family, leaving everyone stunned. The protagonist could only shout, "Why didn't you tell me this 2.5 years ago?" He had been worried all this time that he'd never find a girlfriend and had constantly begged his younger brother for dating advice, asking how to win over his crush. Just then, the 5 sisters showed up, interrupting the conversation. Based on her understanding of boys, Wuka guessed they were either talking about something dirty, or something even dirtier. When she saw the protagonist blushing, she knew she was right. Before he could explain, the younger brother fanned the flames by admitting everything and even dragging Wuka's body into the topic. Wuka's cheeks immediately turned red from embarrassment and she ordered her pet dog, Howling Sky, to teach the protagonist a lesson. "However you messed with me, I'm giving it back double." In the end, the protagonist was the only one who got hurt. Again, ever since the incident where he was caught giving Chinai a back massage, he had been labeled the family pervert by the 4 sisters. Why 4? Because Chinai genuinely liked him, not wanting to lose to her. Banri immediately showed the power of a big sister's intimidation. Aoba, however, had a different opinion. She believed the protagonist's actions crossed the line of decency, but if it were her, maybe it wouldn't be so bad either. Nan simply thought he was a good guy. The protagonist was completely overwhelmed. Not a single one of them held back. Then Wuka revealed why she had actually come to see him. It was about the outing they had all agreed to after the birthday party. It would be the first time all 7 siblings hung out together, and their stunning appearance turned heads everywhere they went. But only the protagonist and his younger brother knew how suffocating it was living with the 5 sisters. Not only did he get blamed and beaten up for everything, but he also couldn't fight back. That night, the protagonist stuck to his principle of never date someone you live with and debated whether or not to message the girl he liked. He had no idea how to come up with a reason to text her, and he was scared of being rejected. Just then there was a knock at the door. It was Uka, asking to borrow his notes. To her surprise, although he didn't seem like the studious type, his notes were neat and thorough, so she copied them immediately. As they talked, the protagonist realized something weird. Wuka didn't seem to treat him like a guy at all. Her reply, "We've bathed together since we were kids, we've seen everything, no big deal," but more importantly, Oka wanted to know who the girl he liked was. No doubt his little brother had spilled the beans. Unable to resist her intense gaze, the protagonist confessed, he liked Hang Shan. Wuka got unexpectedly excited because she knew that girl and wanted to break the bad news right away, maybe even set them up to meet over the weekend. But the protagonist refused. He didn't want his fate decided by someone else. Uka got mad, stood up to leave, and threw one last jab at him. "Coward, hiding behind your little brother like a wimp. You make me want to cry, you know." Back in her room, Chinai was quietly nursing feelings for her brother, her emotions starting to blossom. Some things are just fate, like your soulmate turning out to be someone you used to call sibling. At first, the protagonist didn't believe in stuff like that, but one day after school, he saw the girl he liked already had a boyfriend. His one-sided crush ended before it could even begin. Even though he was heartbroken, he pulled himself together for the evening dinner party. As soon as they sat down, their father stood up to make an announcement. He had been planning to tell them on Chinai's 15th birthday. Once again, tears were shed. Turns out, Nan and the younger brother really were twins, while everyone else had no blood ties whatsoever. Seeing the kids struggling to accept the truth, the father insisted they finish the party properly first. After the dinner, the siblings gathered to share their thoughts. Except for the unusually quiet 4th sister, everyone else looked heavy-hearted. Fortunately, Barney, the eldest, was dependable. She said that by now blood relations didn't matter. They'd lived together for 15 years, and that wouldn't change. Her words helped everyone temporarily ease their worries and go back to their rooms. The protagonist, still shaken by the revelations, went to take a bath to relax, but Chinai was already there. She didn't think twice about asking him to scrub her back like always. To the protagonist, Kenai was still a child who needed care, so he didn't overthink it, but he clearly underestimated the situation. He thought as long as he kept quiet, no one would know about what happened in the bath. He was wrong. When he returned to his room, he found Aoba already waiting for him. Before he could ask why she snuck into his room so late, she pushed him onto the bed. He was totally stunned. As he tried to stop her, she suddenly told him to stay quiet. It was a top-secret mission. Aoba wasn't trying to mess with him for fun. She had seen what happened with Chinai and suspected her little sister had feelings for him. At first, Aoba thought Chinai was just confused, but once their family ties were cleared up, she figured Chinai would eventually act on her feelings. She approved of how the protagonist handled the bath situation, but knew it might happen again. This whole test was to see if he'd give in. Aoba pointed out that although the law bans sibling relationships, that law no longer applied to them. She also believed their youngest sister wouldn't be easily convinced to give up. She claimed she was simply stating the facts, then warned the protagonist not to get any weird ideas about her or she'd be disgusted. Before leaving, she reminded him that, technically she was still his older sister and he should stop calling her by name so casually. After stepping outside, Aoba confirmed that the protagonist hadn't tried anything, but even she wasn't sure how she felt anymore. The next morning, everything seemed normal on the surface. Their daily routines continued as usual, but the protagonist couldn't shake the feelings from last night. After school, he told Nan he wasn't attending club activities and asked to walk home together. As they left, they were surrounded by 3 fangirls who had been obsessed with Nan ever since he shocked everyone with his good looks during freshman orientation. Seeing how admired Nan was, the protagonist quietly envied his popularity. At the arcade, Nan shyly admitted he might be good at tennis, but he sucked at other subjects. A teacher asked him to study more, so the protagonist helped him review, but Nan couldn't focus and quickly started singing karaoke instead. His energy was contagious, and the protagonist soon forgot about studying altogether. As they were leaving, he bumped into the girl he liked and quickly hid. Nan noticed later when they talked about being adopted. Nan said he wasn't that interested in who his real parents were but might ask his dad someday. He added that while the protagonist was technically his upperclassman, what mattered more was the 15 years they'd spent growing up together. That bond meant everything. To celebrate Chinai's birthday, the whole family went to a marine park. It was packed with people. The eldest sister told everyone to stay close and not get lost. She and the protagonist went to buy snacks, but when they got back, everyone else had disappeared with no one picking up the phone. The sister simply smiled and suggested they treat this like a date. The protagonist panicked, but she reassured him they'd probably run into the others eventually. She grabbed his arm like a girlfriend would and walked him through the park. He suddenly felt shy. She was way too close. As they wandered, the protagonist noticed people staring at his sister. Among all the girls, she truly stood out. She teased him for not appreciating what he had, and only now did he realize just how attractive she really was. Later, they sat down to rest, and he asked how she felt about not being blood-related. She admitted it was shocking but not something that would shake her. After all, they had shared so many years together. Being biologically related didn't matter anymore. Hearing this, the protagonist decided not to tell her about the strange things happening between him and the other sisters. He just hoped things could stay the same. His sister noticed he had something on his mind but didn't pry. She simply told him to relax, promising that as the eldest, she'd always protect the family. Just then, a young girl tripped and almost spilled a drink on them. At that moment, the other sisters showed up and immediately checked on the protagonist. Luckily, he was fine. After reuniting, they all headed to their next destination. On the way, the eldest sister suddenly held the protagonist's hand. Night fell and they had a blast. When the protagonist and his little brother went to the restroom, Kenai offered to wait with them. With the guys gone, Aoba decided it was time to tell the remaining sisters the truth. Chinai had feelings for their brother. She had even hugged him in the bath. The others were shocked and offered their opinions. Some thought it was just hormones, others admired her courage. Only Wuka seemed deep in thought. This wasn't the first time she had noticed Chinai acting like this. Before the conversation could go further, they were interrupted and everyone headed to the next spot. Room 505 didn't seem to have anything cat-related. The protagonist decided to search from the intersection near Dawn Street, planning to act on Friday. Meanwhile, everyone else was making their own moves. Even the third sister, Oka, usually the one who seemed to dislike him the most, finally couldn't hold back her feelings. Coincidentally, this was seen by the fourth sister, Sanan. Among the 5 sisters, the only one who hadn't yet developed feelings for the protagonist was Chinai, but even she felt increasingly uncomfortable with the tension between them all. She went to the gym to ask the protagonist how he felt about Oka's report but couldn't bring herself to speak up. After all, they had lived together for years, and what exactly was that bit about the screwdriver stab? The next morning, eldest sister Wanli barged into his room without warning and opened his computer to check his browser history. The protagonist was totally freaked out. Wanli hadn't been in his room in over 12 years. What was her goal? Turns out, She just wanted to take him shopping for a new phone. At the store, she made the decision for him almost immediately. He cared more about inner specs and usability than flashy looks. Wanli joked that choosing a phone was like choosing a girlfriend. Then the store clerk said couples could get a discount, and Wanli went along with it. This whole scene was captured in a photo and sent to Chinai, who was browsing through group photos from her birthday and suddenly felt a wave of mixed emotions. Later, the protagonist noticed that second sister Aoba seemed off. Being the considerate little brother he was, he tried to cheer her up, only to be dragged into her room to play a stick-close game. Ever since her last visit to his room, Aoba had been feeling weirdly hyper. Her brain started associating the protagonist with different emotions, which was starting to affect her concentration, especially with finals coming up. Without even waiting for his response, Aoba started the game. The protagonist was helpless, but agreed, remembering how much she'd helped him with his studies. But after just 2.5 days of playing, she began to get physically closer. Pulling off acrobatic moves right in front of him, he blushed furiously. When he tried to give up, Aoba called him out, saying that quitting would prove he had feelings for her. Cornered, he kept playing, but the more he cooperated, the more excited she got. 2.5 hours later, Aoba finally seemed satisfied, declaring they had something real going on. The protagonist just felt relieved his willpower had held out. What he didn't know was that little sister Chinai had been hiding in the closet, watching the whole thing. The next day, the sisters gathered to watch a romantic drama as they imagined their future boyfriends. Chinai realized her biggest rivals were her own sisters. When the gathering ended, she quietly let out some frustration. Meanwhile, the protagonist found Xiaonan training and suddenly declared himself her personal coach. She was confused, thinking he was worried about her performance in the upcoming sports festival, but he said he'd seen her secretly bandaging herself in the bathroom. Why didn't she tell anyone she was hurt? He started massaging her, recalling how they used to do stretches together as kids. Despite being an athlete, Xiaonan's skin was still the best among the sisters. She admitted that she kept the injury a secret because she wanted to win the tournament and dedicate the championship to her club president, someone who had inspired her deeply. Touched, the protagonist agreed to support her, but after her massage, Xiaonan insisted on giving him one back. Her strength was no joke, and he cried out in pain. Then out of nowhere, Chinai appeared and questioned him, half jealous about what he and Xiaonan had just been doing. On the day of the tournament, the protagonist teased Wanli at breakfast about gaining weight, only to get playfully roasted in return. Suddenly, Aoba rushed in, asking if anyone had seen Xiaonan. Her shoes were all still in the cabinet, meaning she hadn't left early. Turns out, Asanan had been benched due to her injury. The coach and club captain agreed she needed rest, even if that meant she could only cheer from the sidelines. The protagonist suspected something was off. When he checked on her, Xiaonan put on a brave face, but her younger brother Zhiwen later told him that he'd seen her crying alone in a corner. That was all it took. The protagonist stormed into Xiaonan's room, grabbed her hand, and pulled her out, only to find the rest of the sisters already waiting outside with the car. Unfortunately, Wanli had just learned to drive, and there were only 20 minutes left before the match. With traffic jammed, they ditched the car and hopped on shared bikes. Zhiwen ran to get Xiaonan's forgotten racket. The protagonist pedaled like mad, barely able to breathe by the time they reached the stadium. He fell to his knees, begging the coach to let Xiaonan play. He knew the coach and captain only wanted to protect her future, but this match was part of that future. She'd worked too hard to sit this one out. Moved by his sincerity, the coach relented. Asanan entered the court and scored easily at first, but when the match intensified, her foot injury flared up. Despite scoring a few more points, she lost the match. Everyone felt the sting of defeat, knowing their team was now out of the finals. Xian blamed herself, saying maybe the coach's original plan would have worked better. But the captain, though disappointed, didn't want this loss to haunt her. Seeing everyone be so understanding, Asanan finally broke down in tears. After the match, she sat alone on a campus bench, lost in thought. When her brother approached, she put on a smile again. She thanked him and the others for everything and said she wouldn't let the loss hold her back. But as she turned to leave, the protagonist grabbed her wrist and said, "Don't go, and stop pretending to be strong." Sitting on the bed, Chinai recalled the bold vow she'd made in front of her sisters. She'd always seen herself as introverted, so what possessed her to say something so impulsive? A knock came at the door. It was her sister, Wuka. She wanted to talk about what happened. Wuka couldn't understand why her little sister would suddenly blurt something like that in front of everyone. It felt like she'd been pushed to a corner. As the eldest sister, she told Chinai that if anything was bothering her, she could talk to her. Chinai hesitated but finally spoke up. She mentioned something she saw a few days ago. Specifically, at the amusement park, Wuka and the male lead had walked together, and Wuka had said the word like. That moment, originally overheard by their fourth sister, Asanan, was almost shared in the sister group chat, luckily retracted before anyone else saw it. But Chinai saw more than just that. Back at home, while the two were playing games, they looked just like a couple, too close, too familiar. However, Wukan insisted that on the day of the game, it was just her and the male lead messing around. Any strange positions were the result of roughhousing. And as for a confession, she never said anything like that. Still unconvinced, Kenai asked, Wooka, do you really not like him at all? Wooka paused but eventually said, no, I don't, sorry little sis. Back in her room later, Wooka looked conflicted, but she had already said it. What happened next would have to unfold naturally. The next night, their eldest sister Wonli needed someone to go with her to the university to pick something up. The other sisters were all busy, and the male lead had just come home. As the only available person, he got roped in. Wonli was a student at a nursing college, and unexpectedly, the male lead had to sneak into the school like a thief, avoiding the security guard. Why didn't you come alone? He asked. I'm scared, she admitted. Ever since childhood, she'd been afraid of ghosts, and thanks to scary stories from classmates, she couldn't walk around the campus alone at night. They moved cautiously through the dark corridors, Wonli clinging tightly to his arm. The rustling of wind and faint footsteps made her panic even more. When a patrolling guard appeared, the male lead quickly pulled her into a corner and covered her mouth until the coast was clear. Wonli blushed, his arms still around her. From childhood, they'd always been close, but now, her body felt softer, more grown up. Still, despite the awkwardness, they made it to the storage room near the edge of the campus. There Wonli picked up a nearly finished stuffed cat. I only need to finish the face, she said. These toys were meant to be delivered to a hospital for sick children the next day. She explained that during her first year, she volunteered at a pediatric ward. Some kids were cheerful, but others sat alone in the corners. That's when she noticed a group of older girls playing with the children. They weren't nurses or relatives, but students from a club. She joined them and started making plushies. There was one boy in particular who cried outside the ward, unwilling to stay inside. A kind nurse often kept him company, and Wonli was touched by that. It inspired her to pursue nursing. Wonli really was beautiful inside and out. A few days later, the male lead's grades, usually stellar, suddenly dropped. Clearly, his emotions were affecting him. During the 3-day break, he decided to head off on his own. He went to Mount Fuji. His parents had met there. His father once carried his altitude-sick mother down the mountain. It felt poetic. Maybe he'd find answers there too. But at home, things were in chaos. What was supposed to be a 3-day trip had turned into 4, and still, Wooka hadn't come home. Her sisters were worried. Even classmates noticed the normally perfect student was missing. They asked the male lead, but he had no idea where she went. That evening, Wonli ran in. She'd secretly installed GPS tracking on Wooka's phone after she lost it once. Wooka's location, near the border of Yamanashi Prefecture, at the base of Mount Fuji, the same place known for its infamous suicide forest. Everyone feared the worst. Wooka had been acting strange lately. But Wooka hadn't gone there to end her life. In fact, she'd been hiking the same trail every day, staying in a small mountain lodge. The innkeeper remembered her vividly. How often do high school girls come to the mountains alone? She wasn't there to watch the sun rise. In her hand was a hair ornament, her reason for coming. Meanwhile, the male lead rushed to catch a night bus. As the only man in the household and Wooka's supposed twin, he felt responsible for her safety. After reaching the tourist stop halfway up the mountain, he checked in with Wonli for Wooka's GPS location. She was near a mountain lodge, about 6 kilometers away, with a nearly 800-meter elevation gain. At night, it took him over an hour to climb. When he finally arrived, Wooka was shocked. You came for me. He texted the group to let everyone know she was safe, but the inn had no more rooms. The owner offered a single room since they were siblings. The room was small, just 2 beds pushed together. Wooka casually changed in front of him. Unfazed, I'm going to bed, she said. Aren't we siblings? No big deal. But then she brought up their parents again. How they'd met on Mount Fuji. Her words became strange, even poetic. Isn't it funny how Chinai wants to marry you? Maybe fate really brought us here. Before the male lead could respond, she had already fallen asleep. He watched her sleeping back, worried. She clearly had a lot bottled up, but what could he do? The next morning, he woke to find Wooka gone. Only a note remained. I went home first. But he knew better. He called Wonli immediately. Wooka's GPS showed she was climbing the mountain again. Light rain had started to fall. The male lead grabbed his gear and set off. Wooka had hiked to an old shrine she'd visited the past few days, hoping the mountain would help her let go. But every time she looked at the hair ornament, her late mother's final birthday gift, she felt more trapped. They were earrings originally, turned into a clip more suitable for her age. She remembered her mother saying Mount Fuji was the highest point in Japan, like the dream man waiting at the peak. It had stuck with her all these years. She had so much she wanted to say last night but couldn't find the courage. Maybe now was her last chance. But then she realized she'd taken the wrong trail. There were no signs, no people. She tried to go back, but the fog was thick. Then she slipped. It wasn't far, just a steep little slope, but her ankle twisted badly. She cried out, hoping someone would hear, but in the fog, her voice vanished. The male lead, meanwhile, had returned to the lodge and learned Wooka's luggage was still there. She hadn't gone home. Wonli confirmed her phone was still active, deep in a remote part of the mountain. The male lead realized she must have taken a wrong turn into a deserted path. Wuka clutched the ornament, her mind spiraling. Was this how it ends? But then, light flashed. Looking up, she saw the male lead with a flashlight calling her name. Found you. She tried to stand but stumbled from the pain. Without hesitation, he dropped his backpack in front of her. The road back's rough, I'll carry you. Wuka wanted to act tough, but now wasn't the time for stubbornness. After hours in the rain and without proper treatment, her injured foot would only get worse, so she obediently curled up on the male lead's back, asking him to carry her. The rain grew heavier on the way back, and the muddy path became slippery. Even with his good reflexes, the male lead almost slipped once. He couldn't understand why Wuka chose to climb the mountain in such weather. Sensing his thoughts, she began to explain. She had seen a video on her phone that said if you climbed to the top of Mount Fuji, carrying a memento, you could see a departed loved one. She wanted to see her mother, to talk to her about something, though she never said what. It was clear this trip meant a lot to her. She doubted her mother would really appear, but she had to try. Wuka confessed that she used to share all her worries with her father, but ever since he told her that her siblings weren't blood-related, she had started doubting everything he said, including whether those conversations with him were lies. The complicated family ties and her hidden feelings weighed on her. Even her usually perfect exam scores had taken a nosedive lately. The male lead didn't fully understand, but he felt uneasy too. He feared that one day, their family wouldn't be the same. Wuka was aware she didn't fully understand his thoughts either. She said she risked coming up the mountain in bad weather, and if luck turned, he might get caught in danger too. His reply was calm and confident. I'm sure I can handle it. Even if we aren't truly blood relatives, I'll still come to save you. This might seem strange to you, but to me, we are siblings. We don't need reasons. Whenever, wherever, you can count on me. If you're ever upset or sad, take it out on me. I'll always be here to comfort you. So please, don't ever do something like this again. Carrying Wuka, he made it back safely to the lodge where her foot injury was treated. After thanking him, they started their descent. Meanwhile, their family was a bundle of nerves. The fog and poor signal made communication difficult, and with no messages from the two for a long time, they feared the worst, so the family decided to drive to Mount Fuji. Even their normally composed father cancelled his plans and took the nearest flight home. Just as the male lead and Wuka came down the mountain, they ran into their worried siblings. Seeing them safe, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Wuka explained her injury was only a mild sprain, and that she just needed rest to recover. The family headed home, with Wanli driving at a steady 70 km on the highway. Although she was a new driver, she managed well during the 8-hour journey. During the trip, the siblings were curious about why Wuka had gone to Mount Fuji. She vaguely answered it was where their parents had met. They were surprised she remembered such details, as none of them had visited there in a long time. They agreed to plan a family trip there someday. As they enjoyed the warm, peaceful atmosphere in the car, Wuka felt a pang of guilt for making everyone worry. Everyone else was just like before, but only she felt isolated. Suddenly, the male lead rested his head on Wuka's shoulder. Her face instantly flushed red. She had once told him that a girl only leans on the shoulder of the boy she likes. Now, this moment made her heart race. Luckily, they soon arrived home. After everyone got out of the car, Wuka went to wake the male lead and found his face burning hot. He had a fever. Her younger brother volunteered to carry him back to his room and promised to help change his clothes later. Their father arrived home as well. Thankfully, Wuka's injury was minor. The male lead, who had gotten soaked in the rain, was now running a fever, but it wasn't serious. Once everyone was settled, their father went back to his study and flipped through old family photos. He paused, thinking about recent events. Wuka came by to apologize for doubting him since learning about the blood ties. She admitted she had often thought he was no longer the father she knew, but after everything, she realized those were just her own worries, and she felt sorry for causing him stress. Their father smiled gently and said that as a parent, worry was natural. Later the male lead was nursed back to health by his siblings. Wanli prepared some porridge to soothe him, and Xiaonan helped clean the kitchen. Wanli had asked Xiaonan to assist because Chinai had openly confessed her feelings for the male lead. With him feverish and weak, Wanli worried Chinai might take a bolder step. But to everyone's surprise, the male lead managed to fend off Xiaonan's playful advances. After Xiaonan helped tidy up, he went upstairs to check on the male lead. Finding him still asleep, Xiaonan seized the moment to confess his feelings quietly. He softly shared that he'd thought a lot about liking the male lead, not as a brother, but as a lover. Under the cover of night, he leaned over and gently kissed the sleeping male lead. He was careful, thinking the male lead wouldn't notice, but as he quietly carried the dishes out, the male lead's eyes suddenly opened. Filled with disbelief, he had only wanted to eavesdrop on Wuka's story earlier but ended up being the center of an unexpected drama. Frownson and wide-eyed, he didn't dare open his eyes fully. The next day, the family gathered at their father's countryside villa. They thought it would be a peaceful retreat, but each sister had her own hidden feelings. The villa had only one common room, so bedrooms were scarce. Like in childhood, they had to sleep on mats on the floor. The male lead was still haunted by the night Xiaonan kissed him. He'd never dated anyone before, and being caught in such a complex sibling relationship confused him deeply. Noticing his troubled expression, Xiaonan approached and asked what was wrong. The male lead awkwardly looked away, trying not to meet Xiaonan's curious eyes, but as he glanced, he saw Xiaonan's soft pink lips. He blushed fiercely and turned his face. Xiaonan smiled knowingly. The male lead could only try to keep his composure by pretending to be sleepy. Early the next morning, the bathroom door opened abruptly. It was the younger brother who reminded the male lead that the trip was their father's idea, a chance to visit their birthplace. He had researched their original family registry and found the location matched their current villa. But when he looked into the specific address, he felt disappointed. He only wanted answers about his origins. The male lead confessed he never sought his biological parents. He had no intention of lying or deceiving, but after living so long with his father and siblings, they were his true family. Hearing this, the younger brother was comforted. Maybe, as the elder brother said, family meant more than blood. The next morning, Wuka woke to find the male lead absent from his room. He was in the sauna. She thought about the secret confession Xiaonan made while the male lead was asleep. What if others were investigating too? Everyone had different feelings. The male lead himself wondered if he could help his brother. Then suddenly recalling Wuka's stealthy confession, he flushed red and rushed out of the sauna. Wuka was timing his sauna stay. 5 minutes, 23 seconds, much worse than before. Since the night of the surprise kiss, Wuka had been looking for him daily to play games or share funny videos, something they never did before. Suddenly, Wuka grabbed his arm and challenged him to see who could stay longer in the sauna. The male lead knew he was in trouble. This closeness was too much. He pulled his arm away, joking that he just came out and told her to go ahead and stay longer by herself. Instead, he sat beside her silently. This closeness was unsettling. Did sibling feelings really change so fast? Wuka was serious, but as soon as they were alone in the sauna, the male lead regretted it. They sat too close. Suddenly, Wuka asked if he had ever thought about having a girlfriend. He thought, what kind of question is that? Is this a prelude to a confession? Answering yes might complicate things. Female plots could be dangerous. Naturally, he lost their sauna contest. Afterwards, Wuka asked another question. Did he still like Lily? Lily was the girl the male lead had long admired. He said Lily had a boyfriend now and that honestly, he no longer had feelings for her. That was exactly the answer Wuka wanted to hear. With the biggest rival out of the picture, her chances were much higher. Happy and confident, he bounced away. But just as he sent off Wuka, another sister Xiaonan came up. Unlike Wuka, the male lead didn't know Xiaonan's feelings for him. She asked if he had time to accompany her somewhere. Naturally, he agreed, expecting a trip to the tennis courts since Xiaonan was active. Instead, they went to a garden. The male lead didn't think much of it. Everyone knew she liked flowers. As they wandered, they accidentally ended up where most couples were. Some took close photos. Others kissed passionately. The male lead felt awkward. Xiaonan suddenly asked what kind of partner he liked. Was this a sign she was changing too? She explained there were so many couples around, she was just curious. You don't have many requirements, right? Just someone you feel safe with. As the eldest, you'll be busy with work. He'd been asked about liking someone twice today, and found it frustrating. Then, noticing a tag still on Xiaonan's skirt, he tried to pull it off. Surprisingly, he couldn't tear it by hand, and without scissors, he was stuck. They finished the walk and headed back. Xiaonan told him she liked someone now. She was preparing to confess. The male lead thought she was just rehearsing. Going to the couple's spot helped her practice. She teased that he might want to borrow her ideal type's traits, though everyone liked different things. Whatever you eat is my sweetest treasure, so you owe me, she joked. Later, the family came to a river for vacation and swimming. They hadn't been back in 3 years. The natural diving platform was just as memorable, so Wuka jumped in first. On a hot summer day, the plunge was refreshing. She urged the male lead to try, but seeing her face reminded him of the stolen kiss. He stammered and hesitated. Wuka turned to Xiaonan, whose athletic skill surely meant he'd love it. He does, but it'd be better if you jumped with me, Xiaonan teased. The male lead agreed, unaware of Xiaonan's feelings. He thought it was just a sister's request. Watching the siblings happily play, the male lead felt like things had returned to how they were before, like a family with no blood ties causing issues. Unfortunately, he was the only one feeling that way. The sisters no longer saw him as a brother. After swimming, Wanli said she wanted to join but felt lonely alone. She asked the male lead to come with her. Her stunning looks attracted nearby young men who thought she was a model. The male lead realized Wanli's amazing figure left no room for extra weight, but he wondered if that swimsuit was really appropriate for a family trip. Distracted, he suddenly felt Wanli's arms wrap around him from behind. She wanted him to carry her through the water, a romantic thing she'd wanted to do with a boyfriend she didn't have. She sensed his worries and encouraged him to open up. He shared some of his troubles. They walked together toward a small waterfall. From afar it looked calm, but up close the water rushed fast. Wanli urged the male lead to experience the rush of the waterfall's current. Reluctantly, he plunged in, and sure enough, the two were swept off their feet and tumbled into the water. Luckily, they surfaced quickly. Wanli joked about needing more time to get stronger, hinting she was now competing with her sisters for his attention. The male lead overheard but pretended not to hear. Far away, Kenai observed everything carefully. As the sun began to set and the air cooled, the male lead returned to the car for a jacket and unexpectedly ran into Kenai, who was going out to buy drinks. Though she initially intended to go alone, she invited him to accompany her. Walking together, the male lead felt awkward. Kenai had confessed to him in the bath earlier, and while nothing inappropriate had happened since, he wasn't sure how to act around her. At the vending machine, Kenai broke the silence. "You can tell me anything. I'm your sister. If you have worries, you can share them with me." Her words overwhelmed Kenai, who began to cry. The male lead was at a loss. She apologized, saying that part of the reason Wuka left to climb Mount Fuji was because of something strange she'd said to him days earlier, which must have troubled Wuka. She felt guilty for causing him pain. The male lead gently told her not to apologize. It was normal for siblings to cause some trouble. What mattered was understanding and supporting each other. That's what family meant. Seeing the male lead's calm kindness, Kenai recalled her childhood as the youngest sibling, always specially cared for. Once, before their father left, he told the older siblings to look after themselves, but when it came to her, he wished her daily luck. Another time when the housekeeper was away, the sisters took over all chores so she only had to watch. But over time, this special treatment made her question if she really mattered. Once, while playing by the river as a small child, she fell in. Unable to reach the bottom, she struggled underwater, gasping for air. Her older siblings panicked and Wanli rushed to fetch their father. Meanwhile, Kenai was drowning. Just as everyone was frantic, the male lead jumped in, quickly reached her, and pulled her to shore. She felt guilty for almost endangering him. But at that moment he told her not to apologize. He loved her as a sister, naturally. From then on, his place in her heart changed. She often dreamed, if only he were my real brother. Surprisingly, that fantasy had become real recently. On the trip's last night, the group visited a candlelit path winding deep into the mountain, creating a magical atmosphere. The male lead wandered alone, reflecting on the stolen kiss. Though 3 months had passed since their father revealed they weren't blood-related, he felt nothing romantic for Wuka. He decided it was time to talk with her openly. Some things couldn't be left unresolved. Suddenly, he heard familiar voices ahead. He peeked and saw 3 sisters gathered, clearly discussing something serious. Not wanting to cause awkwardness, he turned away. Kenai had called Wuka and Xiaonan to apologize in person. She knew that publicly confessing her feelings for him had caused trouble, especially since Xiaonan's tennis match and Wuka's solo trip were linked to her confession. Kenai had thought she was the only one with feelings, but it turned out Wuka and Xiaonan also liked the male lead. After Kenai's apology, Xiaonan decided to be honest. He was worried about the tension and wanted to clear the air, not wanting Kenai to feel burdened. He openly declared his feelings. Since it was a confession showdown, Wuka stopped pretending too. She apologized for lying before about not liking him. It was stubbornness. Now that all 3 openly liked him, they agreed to compete fairly. Of course, the most important thing was the male lead's choice. They promised no grudges, no matter who he chose. Hidden nearby, the male lead was stunned. Dealing with Wuka alone was already hard enough, and now 2 more had entered the scene. Adding to the complexity, among the siblings, 1 pair were truly blood-related. Just then a nagging question lingered. Why hadn't the killer simply pushed the victim off the balcony? Instead, they dragged them inside the room.